Hey, rich girls, Kirby here, and today I'm going to share my top 5 tips from working in wealth management. This is Rich Girl's Guide, where we demystify the world of personal finance to help you create a financially successful and fulfilling life. I'm your host, Kirby Delicano, and I worked in wealth management for over 6 years before leaving the office to focus on my business and my family. Let's get right into it. Tip number 1. Share your passwords with your spouse if you don't already, or include them in your will. Now, what passwords am I talking about? This could be passwords for all kinds of things, but I'm specifically thinking of computer passwords, iPad passwords, login credentials for your bank accounts, investment accounts, anything like that. Now, I know all my fellow call her daddy girls are just like seeing red right now. We are not sharing our passwords with anyone, but let me paint you a picture. Imagine you are either older and you have a spouse, or you're 29 like me, and for whatever reason, your spouse or significant other or whoever is going to be inheriting your accounts and helping you settle your estate when you pass, if they don't have your passwords, if they don't have credentials, they now have to jump through so many hoops to actually get statements from banks, to gain access to your investment accounts from financial institutions. It is notoriously hard to get information from these places for good reason, right? Fraud, they don't want to get into the wrong hands. They're doing everything by the letter. However, this makes it really difficult for people's families to get the information that they need in order to settle estates. This is especially true for banks. The banks are not going to give out any information to anyone unless they have a death certificate. They're going to freeze the money in that account. Nobody is able to utilize it. So if you're needing to pay for things like funeral costs, if you need to pay for things like death certificates, and you need to use money from someone's bank account, it's going to be incredibly hard. Now, I'm definitely not saying that once you have those credentials and somebody passes, you go in and take all the money out. That is definitely not what I'm saying. But just having that information can be extremely helpful. And think about it this way as well, especially for a deceased spouse. Or in my case, if I pass away tomorrow, obviously that would be very unexpected. Alfred, my husband, would be devastated. So the last thing that he's going to want to do is bring a whole bunch of paperwork to the bank. The last thing he's going to want to do is try and guess my password for all of these different accounts. And maybe he doesn't even know where all of my accounts are. Having the information as far as where you hold assets, who the beneficiaries either currently are or who you wish them to be, how much money is there. Having as much information as possible for your loved ones makes it easier once you pass. Unfortunately, time and time again, I would see older couples who either weren't used to sharing their financial information with each other for whatever reason, even if they had a loving 50, 60-year marriage. A lot of the times, honestly, things would be separated out and their significant other would pass away, and the surviving spouse was left to not only deal with the emotional damage, but now they had to come in multiple times to our office to call different financial institutions to try and find the accounts that they had elsewhere. And then on top of that, try and actually gain access to those accounts. So while it may seem trivial right now, writing down your accounts, writing down where they're held, and writing down any credentials, even if you just seal it up in an envelope and don't give it to anyone until you pass, just having that information handy can really help out your family in the future. Tip number 2, money does not equal happiness. Like, truly. I feel like I knew this to a certain extent before getting into the industry, but once I was actually in it and I had first-hand experience of exactly how much money someone had in their bank account, in their investments accounts, like literally knew their net worth to a T and how they acted behind closed doors, that's when it really clicked for me. I have worked with so many individuals and even couples that made it to retirement. They had millions in the bank, came in looking perfectly put together and had this like really great facade. And then behind closed doors, they were absolutely miserable. Now, obviously, this isn't everyone, but there was a lot of people like this. Now, some of them either had not a lot of friends, maybe they didn't have a great relationship with their spouse. Some of them had no contact with their family, either because of cut off communication, family drama, or we even really sadly would have some older individuals who just had no family left. And these kinds of people would call our office constantly just to have like human interaction. We would have to keep really hush hush about couples that were getting divorced. And behind the scenes, it was an absolute shit show. But I would see those same people posting really happy family pictures together on Facebook. And on the flip side, I have this one couple in particular that I'm thinking of that never made a ton of money. They saved up a lot of money, but it still wasn't, in the million range. They were not millionaires. They were retiring kind of at an older age. They literally had like my dream life. It was a wonderful marriage. They had so much fun together. They would travel on their limited budget. Every time they came in, they were smiley, so happy, lots of family, lots of friends, and they made do with what they had. Now, flipping over away from the client side, I can also kind of say similar things about the people that actually work in the wealth management industry. Some of these people look so put together. They look like they just have the perfect lives. And while a lot of them do have really wonderful lives and wonderful families and wonderful relationships, of course, there are going to be people that are working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks that made so much money and looked like they had such an amazing life. But when they came in the mornings, you could literally see the stress eating away at them. So while I'm constantly on this podcast telling you to save more, save, and increase your income, and while finances do matter, they only matter to a certain extent. Once you have your basic needs met and you can follow a proper budget, aka spend less than you make, maybe use more of that leftover time to forge deeper relationships and friendships instead of just chasing the bag. I know that's so crazy coming from me, but part of the reason why I quit the industry is because I saw a path for myself that I didn't want to go down. So just a little tip. Tip number 3, no matter how much money you make, even if it's millions of dollars a year, you can find yourself in a bad money situation. The only thing it really comes down to is spending less than you make prior to retirement. And then once you are retired, not outspending the money that you have saved. Again, we would have some couples that would come into us that made absolute bank. They made so much money and they really just did not know how to manage their day-to-day checkbook. Like they could not understand that if they were spending, 15, 20% of their retirement accounts, that eventually it's going to run out. Even if those numbers are astronomically large, you can still outspend your money, no matter how much money is there. Now, if you're not sure how much you actually need and you're a little bit nervous, you're like, hey, I'm a high income earner. I save a lot, but I don't know if I'm actually going to have enough for retirement. You can watch my episode 8, How Much Money Do You Need to Retire? And I will show you exactly how to figure out that figure. Tip number 4. Okay, this one is kind of weird and not money related, but if you have an office job or you work relatively scheduled hours during the week, try and get at least one thing accomplished before you go to work. Now, this is especially true for working parents. Getting anything done before the kids get up is a huge accomplishment for the day. But this same idea can be applied to anyone, regardless of whether you have kids or if you have a significant other or you live alone. This one kind of goes back to my tip about money doesn't equal happiness. Back when I was working and everybody had a very scheduled weekly schedule, if I did not get certain things done, like working out before going to work or getting a certain amount of photography editing done, whatever it was, if I didn't get a certain amount of things done before the kids got up and I actually went to work, typically I would be able to spend like maybe 30 minutes to an hour with my kids a day. I'm sure everybody does this differently, but just for me in the mornings, I'm not going to get a lot of great quality time with my children. We're getting dressed, we're getting food in the bellies. There's not a lot of time, especially at the young ages, for quality conversation over breakfast. It's more so get your shoes on the right feet. We got to get out of here before we're late for work. So again, just for me, by the time that we actually got them to daycare, went through the entire work day, picked them up from daycare and came home, it's practically already time for dinner. So I'm either going to have to skip spending time with my kids to go work out or go do extra work, or I'm going to have to do that after they go to bed, which that's just not really how I am. I like to spend time with my spouse and talk or just unwind and watch TV, do something to just relax, not necessarily work after the kids are to bed. But again, the same thing can be applied for someone who is single. If you can get just one thing accomplished, maybe you empty the dishwasher in the morning before work, or I was going to say mow the lawn. I don't think you can mow the lawn in the dark in the morning. Your friends might hate you. If you normally go for like a jog at the end of the day, maybe you switch that up to the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, you can hang out with some coworkers, forging some of those relationships, basically trying to do things to cultivate more community and really deepen those relationships with other people. Again, I know not money related, but when I was just thinking about my time in wealth management and what tips I would give to someone if they were in my shoes, I wish somebody would have told that to me sooner. And that's actually a lie, because somebody did tell that to me sooner and I ignored it for quite a few years because I told myself that I was not an early riser. And I've come to the opinion that nobody is an early riser. You just have to get yourself in the habit of doing it. And unfortunately, I'm not in the habit right now. I need to get back into the habit. But even if you just get up 15 minutes earlier to do anything, just cross one thing off your list, you're going to set yourself up for a better day. You're going to have a better attitude throughout the day, at least from my experience. And hopefully at the end of the day, you have an extra 15 minutes that you can go do something else. Call your mom, shoot someone a text message, grab a drink, whatever you want. All right, last but not least, tip number 5, ask questions. Now, this is in regards to if you hire a financial advisor or you basically hire any kind of a money expert, you are partly paying them for their general expertise and their industry knowledge, even if it does not directly correlate to your investment or your retirement accounts that are held with them. Here's something confusing about the economy on the news. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone or shoot your advisor an email. 9 times out of 10, they have already answered that exact same question and won't have a problem answering it for you. They can be a really good source of information as far as updated contribution limits, their opinions on inflation, like literally anything you can think of, you can always ask your advisor. The worst thing they're going to say is either, I don't know, but I'll find out. Or they'll say that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, but they'll probably still give you resources, either a person or a website, somewhere else to go to find that information. I think this is something that is really underutilized by people. Obviously, financial advisors, when you're in the wealth management world, they're on the phone constantly. So it might seem, if you're leaving them a voicemail or shooting them an email, if you're a people pleaser like me, you might be like, oh, I don't want to bother them. Bother them. Like, you are paying for their services. Utilize their services. I'm also a huge proponent of just learning more. And I mean, I learn more about finance every day. So I can only imagine those who don't work directly with money or in the industry. Like, learning as much as you can is super helpful. Even if you don't plan on directing your own finances, even if you plan on utilizing financial advisors forever, having that knowledge is still helpful. All right, guys, that is all I have for you today. Drop a comment below. Let me know which tip was the most helpful for you, and I will catch you on Thursday with a brand new video. Later, rich girls.